Okay, so we are live. Just seeing how many people we've got on. Hi, everybody who's joined already. Do feel free to say hello to me and Shane. Shane's in the background there, as you can see. I just wanted to keep Shane there just so I can talk and tell you what we're trying to talk about today. Carlton, yes, we are live. We are live. Jenny says hi. Hi, Jenny. Okay, so today's session is really around. I wanted to bring Shane in as an anxiety specialist to talk about anxiety, stress, the causes of anxiety, and trying to look at how we manage those and help people, particularly during this lockdown phase. I felt it was pertinent that we brought in a specialist to try and identify some of these issues and see if there's things that we can actually do as individuals or help other people. So we have got a few people on, so I'm going to just say hello to you guys that have joined, and then I'm going to bring Shane in to introduce himself. Okay. Hi, Ruth. How are you doing? You're with us now, Carlton. Well done. Hi, Sarah. And Colleen, hello. Thank you for joining. Okay, so I'm going to bring Shane forward into the thing. Okay, Shane, so thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you on. Okay, so like I said, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe the background? I know you from stage. That might not have any relevance into this topic. If it does, bring it in. But just tell people a little bit about yourself, and yeah, that's it.
Okay, so I'm an anxiety specialist. I see clients all around the world, mostly online, and I never kind of plans to kind of do this. It was never an idea to become an anxiety specialist or anything like that. But it was I had to figure it out myself. Probably looking back, I probably was anxious my whole life. I probably didn't recognize it. I think with bodybuilding, you can hide a lot of anxiety. I think, not going out, not socializing, it was easy to hide social anxiety by kind of like doing it as part of my prep, because you avoid going out, you avoid socializing, you're kind of focused on yourself. So I think I was anxious for quite a long time. And it wasn't really until, one day we was just sitting there chilling out at home. And out of nowhere, my heart was just beating out my chest, 120 beats per minute. Couldn't breathe, really, really tight chested. It felt like someone was literally sitting in my chest. And I'm not like a massive worrier. So I'm not like, you kind of think only a certain kind of people would experience anxiety. Yeah. So I didn't really think it was anxiety or anything like that, but I knew something wasn't quite right. Called up the NHS direct line because, I didn't really want to kind of make a fuss, and I didn't want to kind of call an ambulance or anything like that, because often that is a sign of people with anxiety. They invalidate their feelings. But my partner, she made me kind of call up NHS direct. Spoke to them, they said, look, if you can, just get down to A&E as soon as you can, just to get them checked over. Went down there, they done all the tests, they done the ECGs or the scans of the heart or the blood test, like that. And they said, look, heart's absolutely fine. You think it's anxiety, you probably had a panic attack. And I was like, what do you mean panic attack? I didn't feel like I was panicking. And they said, often it will be like that, and often it will look exactly like a heart attack, but it's kind of like a duck kind of going across a lake. On the surface, it can look really kind of calm and relaxed, but underneath you could be kind of going crazy. So on the surface, on the outwardly, I might have not been stressing out, but my internal systems, my nervous system, anything like that, may have just been overwhelmed. And this essentially is what anxiety was. I kind of like put off going to see the doctors for about sort of 3 months, felt a bit embarrassed, felt a bit kind of ashamed, didn't really want to, it's not really something you talk to your friends about, really, kind of these kind of mental health things. Eventually went to the doctors, and he was about as useful as a chocolate teapot. He was pretty much like, take these drugs, take these pills, and come back in 6 months' time. And growing up, and I grew up, my mum, she was depressed growing up, and she took antidepressants. I didn't really feel like they really helped her, so I didn't really have much faith in it. Asked him if there was anything other help, and he was like, no, this is it, this is all you're pretty much being offered. And I was like, right, well, so that then I'll kind of just figure it out myself. That led me to kind of I literally just read every book on anxiety I had. They kind of helped, they kind of didn't, a lot of conflicting information. And then one of my friends at the time, he'd come round and he was studying his hypnotherapy and psychotherapy sort of diploma or whatever. And he was playing around with some stuff. We were just mucking about. But I could notice a visible state change, something actually was changing inside me. And because I could recognize that, I was like, you know what, this is quite interesting. And it made me want to sort of study more of this. So I started studying hypnotherapy. I started doing loads of different courses, probably spent tens of thousands of pounds on different courses. And it did start to work. I've not ever actually kind of worked with somebody one-to-one on myself, or like say in a therapy sort of setting. I've had like relationship counseling years ago, but that was obviously for a different reason. But nothing specifically for the anxiety. And when I'd sort of see these courses, I'd obviously work with mentors where I'd be studying the technique or whatever. It would make me feel better, and it did kind of bring anxiety down quite a bit. But I started working with clients with all kinds of issues, phobias, fears, anxieties, traumas, all these kind of things. And I'd get loads of anxiety clients come in and they'd be sort of telling me like their story or their kind of things that they had issues with. And I was like, I've got that issue. I've got that issue. I've got that issue. I was like, maybe this is maybe more than what I thought it was. I didn't even acknowledge that this was even an issue before, because, when it's your normal, your everyday thing, you don't really assume that it's even a problem.
Yeah.
But I started recognizing more and more, and I started helping them. It started getting somewhat sort of good results, and there wasn't always like a track record with it. But I am someone that notices patterns very well. So I notice when things don't go well, I notice when things do go well, and I'm good at sort of I don't mind failing. I've always had a bit of a growth mindset, and I've just kind of led myself to do more and more courses to kind of fill in the gaps where I felt there was any gaps in my knowledge. And it pretty much all changed when I kind of understood kind of trauma therapy and trauma-informed kind of approach. Because everything, essentially, any mental health issue is a result of trauma. You wasn't born with anxiety, wasn't born with these kind of issues. It's just it's a dysregulated nervous system response. So I started kind of going down that route. I started working with clients one-to-one, and I would regulate the nervous system. So anxiety is when your sympathetic nervous system, your kind of mobilization, your doing state is kind of like it's being too overwhelmed. It's kind of like up here. So kind of regulating is kind of like bringing it down. So when I was working with clients one-to-one, I'd regulate them, I'd bring them down, I'd work through the trauma, we'd heal the trauma, anything like that, and it would work amazingly well. But I was doing it all for them. And then 3 months down the line, they'd call me up and, the whole process worked really, really well. But they'd call me up and go, oh, Shane, the anxiety's come back. And I'm like, obviously that was a great business model for people to keep coming back, but I didn't really feel like I was doing my job. So now my whole ethos, my whole kind of process is teaching the client how to work on themselves. So the whole onus is on the client. It's not therapy. It's not like I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm not an expert in you, but I do understand the process. And now I've essentially just refined my process where if somebody has the intention and willingness to kind of face their feelings and start taking that action with it, within 4 to 8 weeks, anyone can overcome anxiety. The way that somebody does anxiety is exactly the same in terms of how your nervous systems respond to it. Is a completely normal nervous system response, but your experience is what's unique to you. So that's also what the great thing is about the way that I work. I don't even need to know any information. So, a lot of guys that I kind of work with, they have no idea where to start. They never even kind of spoke about their feelings before. I certainly wasn't those kind of people, right? But, going through what I went through, even though it wasn't the nicest experience at the time, I do turn around and say now, like, it's probably one of the best things to ever happen to me, because not even just being able to help people now all over the world doing what I do, but myself as a person, how much I've grown. I'm much more authentic myself. I was essentially disconnected from myself and my feelings, and I couldn't connect to anybody else. So anybody experiences anxiety, we have a disconnection from reality. We have a disconnection from ourselves. We have a disconnection from other people. And that is, that's one of the worst parts about anxiety. It's an isolation. It's fears of abandonment, fears of rejection. It's not being accepted. And ultimately, that's what it's all about. So essentially, I've now just kind of refined a process where I've just created a system where, and this is only from making mistakes with hundreds of different clients and finding out what works, where now I've got hundreds of 5-star reviews of successful clients where I know the process works, and I know if it doesn't work, why it doesn't work. But I've now kind of created a system where if you go through the system properly, you never sort of fail. But hopefully that kind of clears little things up and answers your question.
That's really interesting, to be honest. Probably anyone that's joined, and myself included, my history is probably similar to yours, Shane, in the sense that coming from, well, I'm a little bit older than you, and when I've first seen people with stress or depression or anxiety, whatever the words that were used at the time, it was kind of, I was a little bit kind of that person must be weak, or get over yourself. It's not that important. It's kind of, and I'm going back 20 years or so when no one had really heard of this thing before. And then I was a very confident person and never really felt that I could be anxious or get stressed. And then I, like you, very similar. I had to do a presentation in front of quite a few people, and it wasn't something that I hadn't done before. It was something kind of a regular thing. It was an important thing where you would always get stressed or feel a little bit nervous. It's normal to. But on this occasion, I remember standing up to go onto the mic, and I got about 3 words in, and then literally I couldn't breathe, I couldn't speak, and it just stopped, and I was like, oh my God, it just, the whole thing just overwhelmed me. And, it was quite an important role that I had. I was speaking to quite senior public people, and it was an impressionable job. So it felt, everyone was asking me what was wrong, and I had to come up with some kind of excuse. And it was very embarrassing. And I couldn't figure out what it was. What was it? Did I have some kind of really illness that had just come on me at that point? But then things did generally start to get worse, and I did go and see a doctor. They did prescribe me antidepressants, and at that point I didn't take the antidepressants. I was very adamant not to, and I tried to resolve things myself. But I mean, to cut a long story short, because I don't want to answer all the things, but I've dealt with it over those 20 decades, and I don't think, listening to you there, I don't think I've probably dealt with it myself properly, because there are occasions where I still feel anxious, and still occasions where I feel not necessarily a panic onset, but I feel like maybe, oh no, it's starting to come back, and I get a little bit worried. So it's really interesting to hear you talk about those things, and hopefully we can pick in a little bit more about that. What I am keen to understand is around this regulation, the anxiety regulation, and some things around that. I think we'll touch on that in a bit. There's quite a few people said hello, so I just want to just say hello back to those, and say hi, Verity. Hey, Fiona. Hi, Jess. Okay, there's a few more. Inga, hey. Tasha, hey. And Rachel, hello. So maybe before we get on to kind of talking about that regulation thing, maybe if we just pick up on a few of the questions that have come in and answer those, and then we'll talk a little bit more. So this question I've already seen, and it's from a client of mine. She's asked a few questions. So before you jump in, Shane, I'll just kind of cover the first 2, and then if you pick up the next one. So this is from Inga. Hey, Inga. So regarding sertraline and whether it affects fat loss, well, I can't explicitly answer this. All I know that the data shows that sertraline, out of all the antidepressants, is one that does make your weight increase. But I don't know how it affects if you're going into a caloric deficit, and whether it affects fat loss. That's something I know a person who can answer that and then get that answer. So just remind me after this, and I can get that answer for you. But it definitely it doesn't affect everybody, but there is data to show that it does increase weight in, I think it's about 4 out of 5 of the people that take it. You've asked around improving sleep quality naturally. I'm not sure if Shane's going to touch on sleep. We do have a specific sleep one coming up in 2 weeks, but it probably, if you're anxious, I'm sure Shane probably speaks to a lot of his clients, and the problems that come alongside of anxiety and stress, and some of the anxiety disorders, is probably broken and loss of sleep and not great sleep. I'm not so sure if that's something that you come across quite often, Shane, is your clients suffering from lack of sleep.
Yeah. So essentially what it is imagine you've got your sympathetic and the parasympathetic. You've got your stress, your mobilization, and you've got the rest mode. And it's a little bit more complicated than that, but let's just keep it sort of kind of simple with that. And anxiety, one of the reasons we can have anxiety is when our needs aren't being met. So sometimes if you're in a calorie deficit, your body's going to be in pretty much kind of like a starvation mode. Your body's going to be wanting to mobilize you. It's going to want to not let you sleep. So anybody that's kind of done a prep knows how hard it is to sleep, and you wake up ready to kind of have your morning meal as soon as you kind of get up. So what you can do is you want to activate your parasympathetic response. One of the easiest and one of the only ways you can regulate your nervous system or kind of switch on that parasympathetic response is through your breath. So your autonomic nervous system controls things like your heart rate, your breathing, your hormones, all these different kind of things that it affects. But the only thing you can actually consciously control is your breathing. So one of the things you want to do is when you breathe in, you activate your sympathetic. When you breathe out, you activate your parasympathetic. So essentially what you want to do is you want to try to put on the brakes. If you think of it as like your sympathetic's like the accelerator and your parasympathetic's like the brakes. Now, most people, when you're feeling anxious, you're going like 100 miles an hour, your mind is racing and you kind of want to slow down. Sleep, you want to be in kind of complete rest mode. So you want to extend the exhale. So it'd be something like take a nice deep breath in, and then slowly exhale. And there's ways you can extend the exhale. You can hum. So if you went, you could extend the exhale for a lot longer. You can do a small opening of your mouth like this. You can do what they call ocean breathing in pranayama or in yoga breathing, where you do like this. Imagine if you're steaming up like a mirror. You do the same thing, but with your mouth closed. So like this. I don't know if you can hear that. But essentially you're slowing down the exhale. If you literally do 10 rounds of that, which could take you a couple of minutes, it will put you in a more of a parasympathetic state, and it will literally kind of signal to the body that it's time to rest and it's time to kind of slow things down. So hopefully that will answer the question with the sleep.
Just before you go on to that, because I have actually read a few things about breathing techniques recently and the advantages of doing that. Is that something, just for reference, that any people watching now that we can point to? Do you have breathing technique posts or anything that you can refer them to on your Instagram page or website or something like that?
I've posted. I'm going to create a yoga breathing sort of course, and I'll do like a free intro course for it. But on my Instagram, there is a lot of yoga breathing kind of sessions that I've just kind of done there. But in the kind of the original kind of yoga breathing course I've done, you can do different things. So they call it, there's a coffee breathing, which kind of speeds up your system. Because you think that breath, pranayama, prana it means spirit, it means life, in terms of the kind of like what it is your life force. We can go so many sort of days without food, so many days without water. We can only go about 10 minutes without kind of any air. So it is literally our life force. So we can use that life force to kind of speed us up with some coffee breathing. We can use it to kind of balance ourselves with some water breathing. Water be good at all times, every time. Or what we can call to slow us down, we call it weed breathing, because it is literally like you smoke a joint and you kind of just really chilled out and you're relaxed and you're ready to sleep. And you can have this effect. You can change or regulate your nervous system just through your breath. So yeah, I've created like I've got like an anxiety recovery kind of guide where it's just literally like a video of me kind of talking about the things why you've recovered from anxiety, and then a foundation course. But I am creating a yoga breathing course at the moment as well, which will kind of go for all of this, because it's such an easy tool that anybody can use, because everybody breathes, right? So we need to learn how to breathe properly.
Yeah, definitely. And Shane has put his Instagram tag there. So if you are using Instagram and you want to follow Shane, then just do that, and then you can pick up on some of those breathing techniques. Okay, do you want to answer that last bit of Inga's question and around how to handle anxiety on stage if it turns into a panic attack?
So the easiest way is going to be sort of controlling through your breath, because you're kind of already on stage. So the way that I would sort of use it would be kind of take a nice breath in and try to slow the breath down, kind of like that. I mean, I don't know, obviously you're smiling on stage and everything like that. I don't know how easy that would be to be. But if you can kind of regulate yourself before you're going on stage, I know that obviously, before someone calls up your number, you're standing at the back.
Yeah, I know Inga personally, and her stress and anxiety comes prior to stage, and it could be an onset of an hour before or leading up. Once she's on stage, she still can be nervous, but I think if she could control that anxiety prior to getting on the stage, it would help a lot more than so the breathing technique sounds like a good technique to use.
Yeah, so you'd probably sort of do it before, because it's the build up, right? It's the anticipation. That's why we feel anxious. It's typically about something that we think is going to happen. So the more you can kind of stay present, regulate yourself with the yoga breathing, that will really, really help kind of before you go on the stage, even kind of at the back, you know, when you're at the back stage where they call your numbers, you do your kind of T-walk, whatever. But as you're kind of doing it, the more you can kind of get in the rhythm, the more you'll be out of that kind of part of your brain that does the anxiety. So you probably everyone's probably seen X Factor and stuff where someone's kind of really timid before they start singing. They feel really, really nervous. And then as soon as they start singing, they come out of their shell and they become so more relaxed. Yeah. Because when you're in your kind of more like your rhythm, you're in more of your right side of your brain, your more creative brain, and you're outside of that left brain, that negative talk, that voice, that negative belief that's always in there. And you'll be in a different phases of your brain. So when you're on stage, just kind of just get into the flow, get into the feel of your body. The more you're present in your body and into your walk, and practice it, be so present. So when you're doing your walk and you're sort of practicing, notice how you feel every step and every movement, how you feel it in every muscle. And you'll be used to doing this. You know, any kind of body would be used to kind of squeezing every muscles. The more you can be present in the actual feeling itself, will pull you out of your kind of mind state. A lot of people with anxiety, they think too much. And, you know, it's like Bruce Lee said, like, don't think, feel. You have to just feel in your body. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we'll go on to this next one from Carlton.
So if you have a kind of bipolar anxiety depression, there's probably some unresolved trauma. Everything comes down to trauma. It doesn't have to be, you know, abuse or anything like this. Trauma can be what happens to us, but also what doesn't happen to us. So when I say what doesn't happen to us, imagine, say, for example, that, you know, if I was to do like a new experience today as an adult, we don't really have many new experiences, but I would feel a level of anxiety, you know, because it's something new and your body's getting you a state of mobilization instead of action, just because we're not quite sure how to deal with it. Now, as we're growing up through kids, every experience is a new sensation, it's a new feeling. We're so overwhelmed with our emotions as kids that in an ideal scenario, in a perfect world, we would have been a little bit overwhelmed and we would have expressed it to our family or parents, whoever, and they would have sat there and said, it's okay. What you're feeling now is completely normal. You're going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And they would have given us a big hug and we would have gone, we'd have been regulated. Obviously, a lot of these kind of things don't happen. And that's when trauma essentially kind of locks up in the nervous system. Emotion is like energy in motion. You know, they say like energy cannot be kind of created or destroyed, it can only be transferred. And the idea is we kind of go through life, we experience something, we experience the emotion, we'd express it, we'd finish the cycle and it would complete. But when we kind of don't express it, it kind of gets locked inside us because we kind of feel a bit too embarrassed, or we don't feel comfortable to, we don't feel safe to express what we feel. It kind of gets stuck inside us and it kind of builds up again. So it's recognizing how you do the anxiety, but it's practicing learning how to regulate yourself. So the idea is that when you practice the self-regulation, it's things like doing the yoga breathing. Even if you literally done 10 minutes of yoga breathing a day, where you're essentially pumping your brakes. Think of it like this, that, you know, it's like if you've got a Lamborghini, but you've got no brakes at all, it doesn't matter how fast the car is, you're only going to be able to go about 5 miles an hour before you feel like you're going to crash. And it will often feel like that with our nervous system in our state. We feel like we're over 100 miles an hour, we feel like we're just waiting to crash, and then we crash, we feel overwhelmed, and then we feel stuck, we're not moving, and the cycle repeats itself. So the more you can practice actually building up your brakes, the more effective your brakes essentially get. So when you do start coming up here, you know how to actually sort of bring yourself down. Because the idea is that we can't avoid stress in today's world, we can't avoid anxiety, but how cool would it be if as soon as we felt anxious, we could feel it, and then seconds later, we could just bring ourselves down and be regulated. You know, the more better you are, you know, the more kind of efficient your nervous system is, the healthier it will be to be able to bounce back from stress. And that's what we need. We need resilience, because we can't avoid stress. But practicing doing the different techniques to regulate your nervous system, doing things like the yoga breathing, there's other things you can do as well. I mean, in my Anxiety Foundation course, I did like the top 10 techniques to use to kind of regulate your nervous system. And these are all things that's like a bottom-up approach. So most therapy, things like talk therapy, CBT, everything like that, it's a top-down approach. So you imagine you've got kind of three brains. You've got your thinking brain, like your kind of prefrontal cortex, your rational brain. You've got your limbic system, your emotional brain. You've got your kind of brainstem, your survival brain, the oldest part of your brain. which is like your fight or flight responses, anxiety, things like that. So by the time anxiety is kicked in, your rational brain's switched off. So top-down approaches just go out the window. So to resolve anxiety or depression, it's a nervous system response. We need to work bottom up. So these are the techniques and tools that you'd use. The more you kind of practice using them, the more you get better at it. You start to recognize and be more in tune with yourself. Because at the moment, you'll probably be disconnected. You probably don't recognize when you feel, you said it changes so quickly with your moods. You probably don't even recognize it. But there will be certain signs when you start feeling a bit overwhelmed, or you start kind of disassociating, disconnecting. Because anxiety is a overwhelm or overactivity of your sympathetic nervous system, and depression is when you hit that kind of that dorsal vagal, that shutdown state. So imagine you say, for example, if you're like this, you're going overwhelm, 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 overwhelm. If you spend too long here, a 10 out of 10 response, your body is very intelligent. Same way if there's too much electricity going from my TV, the fuse would blow. When you go into that overwhelmed state, you feel lethargic, you feel shut down, you feel shame, you feel hopeless, you eventually kind of disconnect. And some people will experience this with some dissociation. They may feel kind of numb. They might not feel their emotions. And then what happens then is you essentially would have to then get out of that state, go back through the overwhelm, back into kind of rest state. But what happens, people get trapped. And you may probably cycle from depression to anxiety, overwhelm, to depression, anxiety, overwhelm. And this is what people do, because it's a dysregulation of your nervous system. When you start understanding your nervous system, you start working through your traumas. Imagine you've got like a bucket. Your nervous system, you can suppress loads of stuff. This is people's strategy, right? Just push it all down and pretend it isn't there. But over time, your bucket starts to get full up, and it starts to then overspill. So working through your traumas, working through these unresolved experiences, which everybody has them, it basically just unloads your nervous system. So imagine, say, for example, if your nervous system is already loaded, your stress bucket's full, because, by the time you get to 30, 40, who's not had some shit that they've been through, instead of going from 0 to 10, you're like already at 8. That's your default setting. And then the smallest little things then push you into that overwhelm state or into shutdown. So obviously that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but hopefully that answered your question. Can only do with what you've given us.
Yeah, I don't know Carlton personally. I know of him, and I know he is a busy PT, and potentially, there's a lot of stress. If I'm comparing Carlton to myself as a busy PT, you often don't get a lot of time to yourself, and it can be, you're running at 100% from 5:30 in the morning until 9:30 at night, and I think that can add stress when you don't have that time out. So my question to you really would, and maybe it can answer a little bit more to Carlton, is those practices.
Well, sorry, just because I just saw his comment down below. He said that growing up, he'd never had a good upbringing. So again, it's not so much what happens to us, but what doesn't happen to us. The lack of validation, the lack of support, the lack of validating our feelings. Growing up, it was often, kind of be seen and not heard. And, I'll give you something to really cry for. I remember hearing things like this when I was younger. Me and my sister, we was always known as the really well-behaved kids, because we went around other people's house. We were scared, right, to misbehave, because we knew that we'd fucking get it if we got home and we was naughty, right? So we didn't really have a bad childhood per se, but we probably wasn't allowed to kind of express ourselves. We wasn't getting validated of our emotions. We wasn't kind of really being supported and nurtured. And it wasn't through any ill intention. This isn't kind of pointing fingers or blame or anything like that. It just, our parents done what they done. They was dealing with their shit, and every parent fucks their kids up. And this is from a worldwide expert on trauma and childhood development, not myself. He says every single parent is going to fuck your kids up, but it's never too late to repair the relationship. And obviously, then you said that being in the army and seeing some of your friends pass away, that's never easy for anyone to deal with, right? Chances are you probably didn't kind of speak about it. You probably want to avoid it. I worked with many clients with PTSD where they're having a lot of kind of flashbacks and things like that. And ironically, they're probably some of the easier things to work on, because they know exactly what the issue is. So when we kind of activate that response and we kind of release and process whatever didn't get processed in that moment, we know exactly where we need to go. So the process of actually kind of resolving it is fairly simple. It's not comfortable. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but we only activate for a very, very short amount of time. So it's a bit like kind of ripping off a plaster. It's going to sting a little bit, but as soon as it's off, you'll never feel that same way again. And then once it's gone, and when you have processed it, you will never be able to get that same feeling back again. And the great thing is, especially with obviously doing it this way, we don't even have to go into it, because I don't want to get upset. I care about my clients and stuff. I'm quite compassionate as well. when a client starts getting too much in the story, they're kind of getting overwhelmed. I start kind of getting it as well. So instead, we just bring yourself up and then pull yourself away from it. And that's all we need to do to kind of resolve it.
Okay, so potentially, Colin, obviously, you know, he might be looking for a way out of this to help, and you know of ways to help him. So it might be a good thing for Colin to get in touch with you.
Yeah, I'm always happy to have a chat with anyone. You know, if anyone does want to have a chat, it's completely free. Like if anyone wants a consultation, I'm more than happy to have a chat with someone, even just to kind of just air your voices. Most of the time that I'm speaking to someone, the three biggest fears that when I'm speaking to someone that come up time and time again is one, they think that there's something wrong with them, like they're broken and that, you know, they're losing their mind, they're going crazy. There's another one. And the third one is that they're stuck with it. And none of them are true in the absolute slightest. You're not stuck with it. There's definitely nothing wrong with you. It's just a completely normal response from your kind of nervous system and a result of trauma. And you're definitely not going crazy. You know, none of these kind of things is because that is a lot of people's anxiety. They have anxiety about anxiety itself. And literally just speaking to someone that understands it, that can explain it in a way that makes sense. Because, you know, I had to figure this shit out myself. And what most people kind of explain it kind of makes it's so confusing that it's like, it makes you kind of more anxious about it. But being able to understand it in a kind of like a logical way kind of makes you go, oh, actually, this probably is something I can deal with, you know? But hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, great. So we'll move on to the next one then from Jess. It's similar to the first question. Is definitely similar to the first one. So I think you probably covered that one.
Well, I mean, with this, you kind of want to, whenever, say for example, anger. Anger is a signature. So the way that you experience anger is going to be the same way every single time. So I might experience it like a heavy black feeling in my chest. Other people feel it in their arms, like because they're like this, or in their head, in their jaw. They experience it in different places. Now, where you experience that is going to be unique to you, but the way you experience it is going to be exactly the same. So every single time you've experienced it, it didn't get processed. It's a bit like, imagine, say for example, on your TV. And every single time you experienced anger, the volume went up. And you experienced the anger again, the volume went up. Now, eventually your TV is going to get so loud, you're probably going to disconnect. And then whenever you feel the anger again, TV comes on and you get kind of overwhelmed. And you go, this is where you kind of go from 0 to 100. So often, you know, the way that anxiety typically plays out in most people's lives is your interactions with other people. When you have conflict, or you have these emotional outbursts, and you go literally 0 to 100. Now, that's happening because you've got like a lifetime's worth of whatever that emotion is just built up inside you like a volcano waiting to erupt. So rather than like trying to cope or manage the emotions in that sort of experience, I would essentially just work with that client. We'd go back to the imprint. Say, for example, if it is anger, and this is a common experience, I mean, the three main emotions that's holding anxiety up is guilt, shame, and anger. So when we've got suppressed guilt, suppressed shame, or suppressed anger, that is going to be fueling anxiety. So say, for example, if it was anger. The first time that somebody might have learned anger, it might have been where they expressed anger themselves. They might have punched their brother or something. They got really told off, or they got even hit for it. Or, you know, they might have learned in that moment that anger's bad. I can't express anger, other people can. So you'd essentially, in that moment, you create learnings or strategies for life. So between the age of birth till about 8, we're in like this conditioning phase, this programming phase where we learn everything there is about ourselves, about the world, our strategies for life, our rules for life, our beliefs, everything like that. So if you kind of then did that, and that was the imprint, that was how you learn anger. Then every single time you experience anger again, it's like the replay. So we could work on the replay and it would work, but it would keep coming back again. So we need to go back to the very first time that you felt that feeling. Now, a lot of times people go, well, I don't know, how am I going to sort of remember that? But it's not a thinking thing, because the feeling itself is the memory. So your body doesn't know what past, present, and future is. Your mind doesn't know what past. So your mind knows that it was in the past. Your body doesn't know there's a past, present, future. It's living in the ever present. The body never forgets. So just following the feeling itself. And this is where people kind of slip up, because they feel so overwhelmed by the feelings, and understandably so. Imagine if you had a lifetime's worth of anger built up, it's going to feel quite overwhelming to sit with it, just explore it, to kind of figure it out without feeling overwhelmed, because that's when your anxiety kicks in. It's when your nervous system kicks in, because it knows you're feeling overwhelmed. So it typically goes in terms of the three brains. You might have a thought about something, you might become some emotions with it, the emotions start building up, they start feeling overwhelming, and then your anxiety kicks in. And you're feeling overwhelmed. and it's going into fight or flight, because your body's being way too kind of stressed in that moment.
Yeah.
But with somebody like myself who's working with you, I'd keep you regulated, keep you calm, you'd be able to kind of work through it. You'd then explore the feeling, you'd find out what the root of it is. Again, it's not for me to explore it, it's all for my clients to explore themselves. Then we'd go through the process, we'd process it, and then after, you won't be able to get the same feeling back, even if you tried. And because the idea is that no feeling is bad, and my job when I'm working with clients isn't to make clients feel good, but to get them to be good at feeling. That means no matter what the feeling is, there's no such thing as bad feelings, but all your feelings are normal feelings. You are a human being with feelings. The idea is we need to be able to feel anxiety, we need to be able to feel these feelings of anger, guilt, and shame, but be okay with it and not be overwhelmed. Because that's ultimately the goal, to actually be present with ourselves, be connected with ourselves, and be able to feel our feelings. So hopefully that kind of answered your question. But in terms of mental strength and willpower when it comes to fitness dieting, what you can do is, one of the techniques I've done is TFT, which is thought field therapy. It's like the old school tapping. So a lot of times you see TFT like that. TFT was the original, and you can do this. They call it the triangle. So you kind of tap the bottom of your hand like that, tap the top of your hand, under your nose, and chin, nose, and the other side, the other hand. So you kind of go up one side, go up the other. It's meant to be for self-sabotage. So it's hard for me to kind of show this now, but typically if someone's holding their hand out to the side and I was applying pressure on their arm, and if they were saying something that they agreed in and believed in, then they would be strong. So if they didn't quite agree with it, so if I said, I want to stick to my diet, and my arm went whoop when someone applied pressure on it, it literally just went like that, it would show that there's some disconnect there. And there'll be some self-sabotage because there's conflict inside me. So it can help reverse the sabotage. And I know this sounds crazy. This is like, I'm the kind of most left brain logical thinker there is. I guarantee 5 years ago, if you asked me about any of this, I would have said it's all a lot of rubbish. But trust me, for whatever reason, it works. I'm not massively kind of woo-woo myself, but for whatever reason it works, it does. But if you want to sort of send me a message, I can send you a video of it. And it just kind of helps, because essentially what it is we respond with emotion. We essentially need to just regulate our nervous system, and then we'll be able, when that happens, our rational brain kicks on. So remember, we've got rational thinking brain, emotional brain, and survival brain, anxiety. When we're in this kind of emotional and survival brain, rational brain is pretty much out of the window. So that's when we kind of then just eat a whole bag of crisp or whatever and don't even realize it, or a whole jar of peanut butter, and we kind of think, oh my God, what have I done? Because your rational brain is kind of switched off online. So what you can do is when you actually regulate your nervous system, that calms, because it's a bottom-up approach, it calms the anxiety response. That then calms off the emotions. And then when the emotions calm off, then that's when your rational brain can actually start logging back online again. So again, hopefully that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, great. Okay. Before we go on to the next one, Carlton has to give you some response, and he said that he was agreeing with what you're saying, and he said thank you. So it looks like you've helped Carlton there, so thank you for that, Shane. So our next question is from another competitor, Rachel Murray. I'll let you pick this one up.
So whenever we kind of even when you've looked amazing, because I've done comps and everything, and even at the time you never see how you look, right? Because it's not really about what's here on the outside. We have like a mental representation of what we see in our heads, and we don't really recognize it. So to give you an example, because a lot of people think like when you kind of visualize something, you're going to see like a picture or like a movie, and I don't really get this either. But if I was to get you to say, look, close your eyes and think of an apple. What color is the apple? Now, you've already created an image of whatever that thing was, right? So that's essentially what we're doing. And we do that with ourselves all the time. So what you could do is we have an emotional connection to whatever these mental representations are. So it could be what we see in the mirror. It could be what we see in the mind. So essentially what we could do is, if you are sitting there in the off season and you are kind of not looking as lean and ripped, you could sit there in the mirror and you're probably going to feel a bit uncomfortable. Certain maybe emotions are going to come up, certain thoughts, certain negative beliefs can come up. And if you kind of regulate yourself through that, you're essentially calming your body down, and you'll stop the response. If you explore it, it will go to an early experience. Often these are things when our kind of parents or grandparents said, Cole, you need to lose a little bit of weight or something, or looking a little bit chubby, and these are off the cuff remarks. But again, when you're in that kind of priming phase between kind of birth and 8, these things stick. these things kind of stick in our mind. But essentially kind of just talking about and working through the feelings. And you can go inwards, you notice the feeling, and you kind of exploring what it is. There will always be a body response to these things. So after we kind of do these things up here, as soon as you activate it, it will activate a physical feeling in your body. Work with that. So this is what I teach people to do. So when I'm working with someone one-to-one, I typically only work with them for 4 weeks because I'm just teaching them my process. Within 4 weeks, we'll work through more than enough stuff together. But by the end of 4 weeks, you'll be proficient enough and confident enough in my kind of method to just carry on doing it yourself. You know, I typically would only see someone for 4 weeks and then they'll be able to kind of do it yourself. But once, if you was kind of going through this, you would know how to kind of work through that feeling. And when you do, once I've always been like a black sheep, and I've always been kind of really awkward. I've always been like a massive geek. I've always been kind of the outsider. I would never in a million years kind of even be doing this kind of live chat thing. Typically, I've always been really, really awkward. But when you work through your stuff, you feel confident to be yourself and just be me as you are, you know, because a lot of people aren't going to like me. A lot of people might like me, you know, you can just kind of work through those things when you understand how. And you're eventually going to just undo all of this ego and thoughts and beliefs you've kind of built up over the time of what you think you are. This identity that you create in your mind from your experiences. It's not real. It's not your true authentic self. Your true authentic self is the thing that you're born with. So when you're born, that is who you are. You know, you see little kids, they're so expressive. They're happy, they're the happiest kid in the world. They're sad, it's the worst day ever. They're angry, they want to destroy everything. They have temperature tantrum, right? And they're very, very expressive. They're truly who themselves are. But at some point between kind of when we're born and become adults, we learn to express ourselves. We learn to not truly be happy to suppress how we feel. We suppress who we are. We suppress our identity. And this is kind of like where people kind of get stuck when they start experiencing anxiety. Because when we're suppressing ourselves, that's when all that sort of stuff's building up inside us. And just like you notice about keeping it boiled up inside, that's when it kind of feels like it's erupting like a volcano. And
Can I,
even come.
I was going to say, can I try and simplify this a little bit, because I do know Rachel quite well, and I think, and not just Rachel, I think this applies to not just females, it does apply to males, and I understand this dilemma myself, not to a certain degree, because I think what you've just talked about is how I deal with it. I see myself as a person, almost in a, I'm kind of, obviously I am, if I've got off season and I don't like that look, I'll be more conscious about taking my top off on a hot summer's day than I would normally. But I think from Rachel's perspective, she's seeing two different people. And I think that's what you're talking about is when on stage, that's when she probably feels the most confident. She gets the most compliments, maybe. She has pictures taken. And then when she's off season, she feels a different person, not as confident. People aren't saying the same things. She's not getting pictures taken. And I don't know, this creates almost two different scenarios. And then that scenario where she's heavier and not as confident, then is that where she gets withdrawn and goes into that kind of anxious state? Is that, are you saying that, I mean, I'm reading between the lines, are you saying that if you're comfortable within yourself, it doesn't
matter how you look?
Exactly, that's what I thought you were saying. So
because I mean, you know what it's like, right? Even when you've been on like your stage day, you kind of know that you look good, right? But maybe there's a part of you's like, oh, I'm not quite there.
Yeah.
Right, I've been there, right, and I've been shredded to the bone, and I'm like, could look better, not good enough, still not good enough, and it's because I never felt good enough, right? Growing up, my mum was very critical, she was kind of very a bit harsh and kind of very outspoken. I couldn't do anything right. I couldn't even wash the dishes properly. So it creates an element of that you're never good enough no matter what you do. So that kind of seeps into everything that you do in life, you know, and maybe that's part of why I like having a growth mentality, and I like kind of always better myself. So it can be a beneficial thing as well, but not when it starts making you feel like you're not good within yourself, you know. So how you look doesn't really make a difference. But what she might be kind of alluding to is especially what people notice is that sometimes it's handling other people's emotions and their awkwardness. So when you kind of, they know that you've put a little bit of weight and you're probably seeing them go, oh, look, you're putting on a little bit of weight, and they don't know how to approach it because they feel a bit awkward, a bit anxious. So essentially, again, when you're at peace within yourself and you're okay with other people's feelings, you're regulated here. So imagine, say, for example, this is kind of like your friend. When your friends are like this and they're emotional, often we'll go like this because we care about them and our bodies will respond. And our bodies are always talking to each other. But when you can stay down here and you can stay regulated, your friends may feel a bit awkward. But eventually they'll start regulating themselves and co-regulating because you'll be down here. So they may be like, oh, you're not looking quite seen. Like, oh no, yeah, fine. So, it's obviously just part of the thing. But it will literally be as easy as that. But you have to do the inner work to get to that point.
That makes sense, and I think that is actually pertinent towards Rachel's situation because she has. She's probably talking about she's got two types of friends. She's got the gym friends that probably know and she's comfortable around off season in the gym and around those people. And then she's got work friends who completely don't understand why she's dieting sometimes and then why she's then heavy. And it's probably that situation you just said. Is that kind of level between her and her friends? So I think you're right there.
And it's essentially conflict. When somebody's emotions are up and your emotions responding, you kind of don't respond, and you feel a bit awkward because you kind of like, oh, I don't have to explain this again. Yeah, this is part of the process. Yes, I am a little bit heavier. Yes, I am not looking as I was before. But people that don't know it and don't get it, it's like, oh, you're not quite as seen as you was before. Right? They have these kind of like backhanded compliments sort of thing, or these kind of like funny comments. And sometimes it can bother people, or sometimes we can just be bothered about how other people feel. But again, when you've worked through this kind of stuff, you kind of just don't really care, and you're just going to accept that people are just going to have their opinion about you. They're going to feel their feelings, and their feelings is their responsibility. The only person you're responsible for is how you feel.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, thanks, Shane, for that one. Inga's just saying thank you again. It was really helpful. Okay, we've got another question in from Fiona. So she was referring to when you were talking about getting overwhelmed.
Yeah. So often, if say for example, if you could talk about your experiences or how you felt, and you wasn't getting overwhelmed, you probably then start to be able to unpack it and process it. But people will avoid these things because they know how overwhelming the feeling is going to be. They know it's going to kind of be kind of difficult. Sometimes with my clients from the first session, they're sitting there trying to hold their feelings in and trying not to go into their feelings. And I'm like, look, listen, it's weird if you didn't cry. It's really emotions in there. It has to come out. Think about when I said about, emotions, energy, emotion. It's in there. It is in there. That's why what happens is that, say, for example, if somebody has things like guilt, whether it's unresolved, this is where you get things like these kind of irrational thoughts, where I've had clients where they thought about like murdering babies and stuff, and they feel such an powerful guilt with it, because your mind will think about whether it needs to trigger the feeling that's inside you, because it's trying to get rid of it. It's trying to get you to release it and go through it. It won't work that way because you have to go back to the imprint and process it. But essentially, if people could learn how to regulate their nervous system and kind of manage their emotions, they will be able to kind of unpack things a lot easier. So again, hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, but it's typically just because we feel too overwhelmed, and then we feel too anxious, and then we kind of they're going to shut down the state.
Yeah. So just touching on that kind of, it is. So when you're saying about like a build-up of energy, is it right to call it negative energy, whatever? A build-up of toxic energy or whatever you'd refer it to. Is it a good thing? I mean, it's certainly a bad thing to keep it locked in. Surely to keep it held in yourself. Is it? And this might be individually specific. Is it a good thing to open up and talk and try to release? Is talking? Does it help? Does it help release that energy? And does bottling it up and keeping it to yourself, is that really thing that people should avoid to doing themselves?
So I mean, it's a really, really good question, and the reason why is because that. Say, for example, if you do express yourself, say, for example, if say your girlfriend, say if your girlfriend feels a certain way, and she's kind of really feeling like this, you're going to then start feeling like that, right? Because you care about her. Your emotion's going to be up. You're like, oh my God, I need to help her. I don't know what to do. I feel helpless. And then because essentially her emotion's gone like this, she's been overwhelmed. Because you've done that as well, essentially it's almost like a rejection from her feelings. It's saying, I can't deal with your feelings. don't do this sort of thing. And this sometimes this is how your friends do it. Sort of thing. They feel like, oh, I don't hear this, I can't do this, I don't do it. And essentially, you feel abandoned, you feel worse, you feel more rejected than you did before you even started expressing yourself. But when somebody's regulated, so say for example, when my clients are like here, and I've had clients where they're literally kind of bawling their eyes out and literally the worst kind of emotions that they could ever feel. I'm not having the best time of my life either. I'm not kind of sitting there going, yeah, it's fine. But because I can stay regulated and calm and be completely normal with it, they all start to calm down. Because essentially what that body communication is my body saying, I am 100% okay with you right now. This version of you that's in front of me, that's feeling what you're feeling, I can 100% accept you for this person. But a lot of people can't, because no reason, people take it personally. It's not typically personal, but they don't know how to handle emotions themselves, because we never learn how to stay regulated or how to process these emotions or actually deal with them. So, I come across a lot of therapists and a lot of people that I training to and things like that. A lot of people that go into the therapy world are doing it because they want to save other people. They want to save other people's little wounded child, but really it's their own wounded child that needs saving. And if you don't do that work yourself, you're going to get triggered, you're going to get activated when you work with clients, and essentially their bodies, it's going to be an unconscious thing. You won't notice it consciously, but their body will know it's being rejected. And it won't start the process of healing because you're not accepting the person for what they are. Whereas if you can stay regulated and you're like, oh, cool, yeah, you can do what you're doing. I'm sticking with the process. I'm not going to let you run the show with the emotions. This is happening right now. We've started a process, no point backing off just because you're getting emotional. I can stay calm, I can stay cool with it. And within 5 minutes, they will never be able to get the same message. Whereas if I kind of backed off and was like, oh my God, are you okay? And, and sort of panted a little bit almost, they've essentially kind of taken control and won the show of it. Their emotions have won. And it's just the kind of the wounded part of them that's just playing out. But we need to be able to hold that space so they can essentially process it and just let it out and let it go. So if my body starts reacting, they back up.
So I mean, that is really interesting, to be honest. And so, and I'm sure lots of us, not only are we the kind of, I'm not sure if victim's the right word to use, but we're also the person that, when that person calls us or tells us about it, we're also the receiver. And it just, do you have any specific advice to that when that person reaches out to you? And I'm talking, we're touching on anxiety, but there are even more severe points when someone even can consider taking their lives and things like that. So that might be taking it one step further, but do you have advice for that receiver when they see some kind of message so you can see that person does need help? They definitely are feeling down or anxious or whatever. Do you have any specific advice for those?
Yeah, just stay calm. Don't feel like you have to save them. Focus on yourself in relation to them. So a lot of people will call themselves kind of empaths. Your body will pick up what other people are feeling. If you walk into a room and someone's angry or pissed off, you feel it, right? You feel the tension. You start walking around in eggshells. Same with someone's really happy, it's infectious. You start catching their laugh and you're catching their energy, right? So essentially when someone's sitting in front of you, calm down. Essentially, even just saying this right now, just what you're feeling is completely normal. Everything's going to be okay. And you gave him a hug. Like that is so underrated, honestly. Literally just holding someone. We need to be held. When we're held, it signals safety. Because if I feel safe to touch you, it's saying, I'm okay, you're okay, we're okay. And this is why this kind of fucked up with the whole coronavirus thing and keeping your distance and everything. It's making people seem like enemies and dangerous. So we're not being held. We're not having that skin-to-skin contact. That essentially signals safety. Now, I don't care how old you are. Doesn't matter if you're an adult or you're 70 years old. We all need to be held. So if you are dealing with your person, don't try and offer them solutions. We need to regulate first. So essentially just kind of holding them, just hugging them, or just kind of even a hand on the shoulder and saying, what you're feeling right now is completely normal. It will be okay. Literally just that in itself is so underrated. But notice when you're feeling it so yourself, if you are feeling overwhelmed, you can even kind of just self-soothe yourself like this with your arms. It's a really powerful way. This technique kind of called havening. It creates delta waves based in neuroscience. But I mean, if everyone just kind of done this now, you notice how calm you feel. And in calming yourself down will calm the other person down. It will regulate. It's called co-regulation. But same with noticing your breathing. If somebody's kind of feeling a bit overwhelmed, you think, okay, I'm gonna breathe to my chest, my belly. Slow the breathing down, relax it, breathe into your belly, and you'll calm the person down as well. Nobody's going to stay emotional. But if you kind of then your body kind of does this and doesn't know what to do, you're kind of rejecting the person. But I hope it answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, and the same person, Fiona, she, I think what she's talking about in this next bit is where she has tried to talk about people, and I think she's been rejected. So that you can just approve of if I'm being right there. But
yeah, so essentially what someone's saying when they say that, and sometimes it's not intended. You know, I've said this sometimes to my nephews. I've said, "Oh, come on, big boys don't cry before I've seen I knew." Or when we see someone upset, we go, "Oh, come on, cheer up." What we're doing is we're invalidating this feeling. No feeling is bad. Essentially, we say, like, okay, this feeling right now is completely normal. It's a normal feeling. We're human beings, right? We have feelings. It's fine. This is a normal feeling. I can accept you feeling this way. And then once you just kind of be with them, regulate them, and just kind of calm down, it won't last forever. Once the feelings have passed and they've kind of regulated, then you can start focusing on the solution and taking action. You always have to take action to solve problems. You can't just regulate and you feel everything's fixed, you know? But when someone's thinking that you're sensitive, ignore them, because you might be too sensitive to them. Right? They might not be able to handle it. When they say that, it's more about them than it is you, like with anything that people say about you. Essentially, it's just that maybe you're just an expressive person, but chances are, if you're very quick to trigger and you are quite sensitive, you just have a lot of suppressed emotions inside you, or just unresolved emotions. Everybody has.
Okay. I mean, it's really good because you just mentioned, so Fiona's commented again. We'll quickly touch on it, but you've just almost highlighted what she says here.
I'm definitely an empath and struggle with that. Also, it gets me upset and down if my friends, family are down. I think that's why I don't go to people with my feelings. Yeah, so I mean, this is it's the strategy of a child, right? So when we're born, we have two needs: attachment and authenticity. Authenticity is the ability to kind of express our feelings and get our needs met. Because, you know, if a baby's kind of crying, a baby cries to kind of tell it needs. It feels unsafe, it needs feeding, changing, whatever. That's how we communicate. But we will sacrifice authenticity for attachment. So you grow up, if you see your parents stressed, you see your parents kind of emotional, if they wasn't very well regulated and could take care of their own kind of nervous systems and they was regulating themselves, you would have sacrificed your authenticity for attachment, because it's your parents that keep you alive. Right, so it's literally a survival response. So we learn to suppress ourselves in order to kind of focus on making sure our parents are happy or we're okay. Because they're okay, they keep us alive, right? So sometimes a lot of people don't grow out of that, and we try and save everyone else, and we feel bad about other people's feelings. We feel like it's our responsibility, and this is often when, you know, a child first experiences shame, because it's not that we couldn't save them, but we felt like we had to save them. We felt like we should have been able to. So we feel shame when we kind of can't do something which we feel like we should be able to. And we just don't know that it's not our responsibility. It's not anything to do with us. But obviously when you're like free, everybody's a narcissist. You know, we're hungry, we get fed, you know, we need changing, we get changed. Everything just happens for us. So but at the same time, we take everything personally. And when our parents are unhappy or stressed, we kind of feel like it's our fault. We kind of feel like it's something to do with us.
Okay, cool. We have got at least one more question, definitely. But let's Rachel Murray, who we answered before. She says, you know, "Thank you. We hit it on the head. So thanks." Ruth Hunter's made a comment around the hugs, and she's saying that's hardest part of the lockdown for her, and she lives on her own, so it has been really tough.
So self-regulate with this. If you go on my Instagram, there will be on my, I think on the IGTV stories or something, kind of like a guided meditation thing I do with this, and it's really, really powerful. It will help you to kind of same way that we can trigger bad feelings, we can have resource feelings and resource memories. So if you kind of go on Instagram or if you send me a message, I can sort of send it to you. Practice it. It will help build up some resilience and put you more of how you want to feel rather than where you're stuck feeling.
Okay, great. So we've got another question then from Kelly Foster.
Are you able to reverse anxiety from childhood experiences if you have something ingrained? Yeah, 100%. So it doesn't matter how long you've had it, or how many years you've had it, or how long you've had it. All of it can be resolved. The body never forgets. So it doesn't matter how long you've had it. Like, I've worked with clients where they've had it for like 60 years and they almost feel like they've kind of given up because nothing's worked. And a lot of times that's why people kind of have these beliefs. And one of the things with anxiety is you have to be willing to prove yourself wrong. It's the same way that, if I text Matt and I'd seen that he read my message and he didn't respond to me, and I'd seen you posting on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and everything, I'd be like, oh, Matt's a bastard, he hates me, he doesn't like me, blah, blah. Like, and then I feel emotional about it, right? Because it's never about the situation, it's our beliefs about it, our understanding about it. So when we give meaning to something, that's how we feel, what we feel about it. So we have to be willing to prove ourselves wrong. Same way if we kind of believe that nothing works, we have to be willing to prove ourselves wrong. So a lot of times people will have questions like this, and I even had a new client today, and 50% of my clients, or most of my clients, would come to go, "Oh, do you think you can help me then? Like, do you think I'm a lost cause?" Everyone kind of thinks, just has this kind of idea. It's never, ever, ever true. The only thing that's the biggest obstacle is yourself, in terms of your willingness to face your feelings and do the work. Because I don't save my clients. I'm not like a therapist kind of thing. I'm a guide. I show you how to do it. I keep you safe. Show you how to do it and do it with you. I can help co-regulate you. And obviously, I'm quite good at that. But the idea is that you're going to carry on doing the work yourself. You're going to be able to take care of yourself because you're going to face more trauma in life. You're going to face more heartache and heartbreak. Life is traumatic. And they say like trauma is a fact of life, but it doesn't have to be a life sentence.
Okay, so we've nearly come to time, and there isn't any more questions. But there's something I want to just quickly ask, because you haven't mentioned anything about antidepressants and drugs, apart from your own experience where the doctor didn't help you and tried to prescribe pills. Now, most people, if they have been the doctors, the GPs, or are considering going to the doctors, they're going to most likely be prescribed some kind of antidepressant pill. So, what would you say about that? I mean, what's your opinions on taking antidepressants? Are they a good start, and then start self-regulating, or what?
First of all, medical disclaimer: I'm not a doctor. Do not take my medical advice for anything. Speak to the doctor first. Saying that, I've never kind of met a client which has kind of felt that it's done anything. Because the thing is, with anxiety, right? Anxiety typically kicks in when you feel out of control. And it will really kick in when you feel inescapable or trapped. So same with this kind of lockdown situation, not being able to leave the home, not being able to kind of regulate ourselves for our kind of football or the normal things that we do, kind of things. We have an element of inescapability. So often with my clients, they have issues kind of going on planes, going in the underground, small spaces, being stuck in traffic. Nothing to do with those specific things, but it's the feeling of being trapped, it's inescapable. So sometimes when you're, a lot of times, first times my clients have had a panic attack, it's when they've taken drugs, they've smoked some weed, or they've dropped a pill or something. And once you're in the drug, you can't get yourself out of it. So it's inescapable. So I've worked with a lot of clients, they said they've taken this medication and they felt so out of it. And once you're in it, you can't escape it. Sometimes it kind of triggers more anxiety. So I'm not against medication in terms of, some people, if it helps you, then so be it. But it's never going to be a long-term strategy. It's never going to be like a long-term solution. If anything, it's like saying like this: if I've got high blood pressure, doctor would say, here's blood pressure medication. Good luck for the rest of your life. Or you could fix why you have high blood pressure. So maybe you could fix the root of the depression. Maybe you can start, it will take resolving the trauma, but also take changing your life. There's going to be certain needs aren't being met. You're not going to be if you're depressed, you're not taking care of yourself.
Agreed. So that was the answer I was hoping you were going to say. Really, is that it's a sticky plaster type remedy. It's not going to fix it, and you're going to need all of the practices you've talked about on this chat so far to try and kill it off, for good, almost remedy it and fix that root cause. So just before we finish, because Kelly's just come back with a kind of some context on what we were talking before. Kelly was talking about reversing anxiety, particularly from an episode as a childhood, and there's two things she's mentioned here, and I'll let you take over from here.
So if it is traveling and going on a plane, sometimes it's kind of to build up to it, but it's the closing the doors, it's the inescapability. So like, oh my God, what if something happened and I couldn't get off, or I couldn't escape or couldn't run? So think of it like this: when we can activate our fight or flight response and we can go into flight, we move ourselves away from the threat. When we're trapped and we can't escape it, that's when we feel kind of going to that shutdown state. It's a threat to life then. This is when people feel really overwhelmed. That's when the anxiety kind of really kicks in. If you explore it, if you're willing to explore it, you can work through it. Typically in 1 or 2 sessions, you'll resolve that. I don't normally do 1 or 2 sessions because the thing is never the thing. When I sort of say the thing is never the thing, say, for example, my nephew, for whatever reason, we didn't notice, and this happened for like a good year, 2 years. Every single time that he even mentioned going on holiday, he'd just break down in tears, he'd be an absolute mess. And he was only about, 8 years old at the time. What it comes down to is, for whatever reason, one time before holiday, his granddad passed away. His subconscious is just associated with those 2 things. So something bad's going to happen if I go on holiday. Someone's going to die. Now, he didn't know this was a conscious thing. It wasn't like a conscious thought he was having, but his body was just having that same response. And it was just unresolved feelings that maybe he felt that way, but he didn't know how to speak about it to other people. Just kind of touching on what kind of Fiona said, that often we kind of try to stay strong for our kids and for things like that. But what you're essentially doing, and this is not a dig or anything, but you're teaching your kids that it's okay to not show your feelings. In either way, you'd kind of show them, be emotional, but then how to kind of regulate and go, so I feel emotional, because then we can deal with it after. We can process our feelings, and feelings are normal. They're like a normal thing. They should be as normal as brushing your teeth or washing your face. So again, it's not a dig or anything like that, because obviously I know your intention is 100% best at your heart, but when you learn how to regulate yourself, your kids will naturally pick up on that. And when you sort of do the techniques and everything, and you'll be sort of regulating yourself and feeling a certain way, I guarantee when your kids feel a certain way, they'll be they're doing all these techniques and stuff, and they'll be like, and they'll start regulating themselves, because we copy our parents.
Okay, so Kelly's done a double, and I think the answer's in what she said. So I'll go to the third one first, because I think she answers. Bear with me. So she's wondering what the subconscious thing is, but then in this previous message, this is what she says. Now, is that the subliminal message because she was constantly ill? Potentially, that is that the subconscious thing that she just doesn't want to be.
Sometimes it can be just association. Sometimes if she's constantly been ill, it's almost like you're anticipating that the same thing is going to happen again. Yeah. So often, say for example, people that have anxiety have a panic attack. The anxiety then shoots up after that because they fear that another panic attack is going to come again. They're going to have more of the same sort of feeling. The idea is that you don't want to kind of just ignore it. It's just kind of addressing the feeling, but then regulating. Because what you're essentially doing when you're regulating you're not going to not fighting the feeling. You're not trying to run away from it or distract yourself. You're essentially accepting the feeling and teaching the body that you're safe. So by the time it's kicked in your body, your mind's it's too late for your thinking process. Your CBT and all that sort of stuff goes out the window. We essentially need to work through the body, essentially kind of put in like a cheat code to say, body, we're safe. Cool. Like, worry about it. Do this anxiety thing, because the body's essentially feeling we're in a fight or flight response. It feels like it's in danger. So when you can communicate with the body, go, it's cool, we're fine, everything's gonna be okay. Essentially, you're sending that message to your body. The body doesn't start to calm down, but the feeling itself is a memory. So if I was working with you, we trigger the feeling. I teach you how to explore it. You explore it, you figure out what it's connected to. It will be connected to something. Process it, and then once you process it, you'll never be able to get the same thing back for that same situation.
Okay, all right, wicked. So I'm going to start to close it off, because we've had all the questions in, and that was Shane. I want to say thank you, because I learned a lot myself there. So for me, it was very, very valuable just from my own perspective, and I'm sure from the feedback we've got from the viewers watching, it was very, very useful. So thank you. That was a really good thing. What I want to be able to do is just give you an opportunity to, I know you've talked about some of the services you offer, but if there's any contacts, and you can actually, on this thread, you can actually put a website or phone number or contact details if you want. But if you want to say anything else, just to close it off about yourself and services.
So most of my content is on Instagram. So if you follow that anxiety specialist, all my kind of stuff's on there. My links on there to all my stuff. So if you follow me on Instagram and you'll see everything on there. I have a free anxiety kind of guide, but I've probably gone a lot deeper than the guy does on this. But I've also got like an anxiety foundation course. And the idea was that I know a lot of people, by the time they eventually reach out to me, sometimes they've been following me for months, if not years. Sometimes they've been following me for a long time before I even feel comfortable to, because they feel like I might judge them. I never do, because I don't really care, to be honest. I care about helping people. Or they feel like, sometimes we feel like that people, my problem's not really that serious. It's a very common one as well. And feel like, other people have it so much worse than me. You almost feel guilty, working on your stuff. All of your feelings are valid. Every experience you have and any kind of issue you have is 100% valid, and it can all be worked on. I created this anxiety foundation course. So the anxiety foundation course is only £47. It goes through my top 10 techniques to regulate your nervous system. It explains everything you need to know about trauma, anxiety, the cause of trauma. It has a workbook in there, which basically is there to unpack anxiety. So you start understanding it, and it's not anxiety itself. Everyone experiences anxiety. So it's not as if it's unique to certain types of people. It's basically if you have issues with your emotions, if you find conflict quite difficult, if you find it hard when people push your buttons, anything like that, literally anything with your emotions, any human should basically go through the anxiety guide. It'll help you really understand yourself. And then once you've kind of gone through it and understand it, that in itself is going to take a lot of anxiety down, because a lot of people just have no understanding of it. And then once you've kind of got it in your workbook, you can have more compassion for yourself. You realize that, if I could finish with this, one of the best bits of advice I can give anyone is when you're feeling a certain way, if you're feeling anxious, you're feeling emotional, just ask yourself, am I being my full adult self right now? And the chance that it would be no, because you probably feel like I've been a bit of a 10-year-old or something. When you are feeling like a 10-year-old, what's happening there is that 10-year-old wounded self is coming forward. So you have to just be compassionate for yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't kind of, why am I feeling this way? This is what we do, right? Think, what would I need in this moment? And then just give yourself what you need. But going through the course kind of helps you to unpack all of this, so you do have more compassion for yourself, and then just get you in a better position to then work with what you did want to. Okay,
great. And that link is on, it's via Instagram and on your website, I think, isn't it, to purchase that package?
Yeah, yes. And with that sort of, even £47 itself, I'll be there to kind of answer any questions you have. So literally just to have me to answer all of your questions, it's worth £47 itself.
Sounds amazing. A few people are just already kind of saying massive thank you. Awesome session. Thank you. Learned so much. Thank you both. Thank you so much, guys. Time just flies today. Great session from Ruth. So she's learned a lot from Verity. So, and just a personal one there from Fiona, just makes you realise you're not the only one. So
that's it.
Okay, so Shane, if you just stay online, I'll talk to you off stage. But thank you everyone for joining this call, and thank you for interacting and asking questions. And the next session is on sleep. Got sleep specialist, and that's in 2 weeks' time on the 25th of June at the same time. So please join me then. Okay, thank you guys, and we'll see you soon. See you later.